Welcome to our first panel for We Art Greensboro. I'm Devin McKnight. I work here at the Center for Visual Artists. This is Ivana Bogdan. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's fine.
She also works here. This is Chris Snow. He is working here also right now. He teaches upstairs. These are our panelists. We have Bianca Pagliai. You don't say the G, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just like run it together.
Just run it together. Yeah.
Pagliai.
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 Elanese. Yeah.
Daniel White.
Is that how you say it?
Is that how you say it? White.
Derek Dickens.
That's me.
Jasmine Best. Jerry O'Donnell. Thanks for coming. So I chose all of them and invited them to come. I was trying to find sort of an eclectic group of artists that represented the different sects, like S-E-C-T-S,
We don't cite this word.
I didn't
We don't
know.
cite this word.
I'm not ready for
Good
that.
job, Deb.
Greensboro's arts communities. So you'll see in that brochure, you'll get the vibe that they represent different styles and peoples and communities. Let's see. So I'm just going to start out with like a general question for you all to answer. And within that, if you guys have questions or you like hate what they say and you want to like debate it, feel free to please. You don't have to raise your
Just
hand.
get ugly.
At any time. I can go to the bathroom while you're arguing against
At
me.
any time.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is as much like to hear from you guys as it is to hear from them. Okay, cool. Agree?
Yes.
And if you have questions for them, like if you're looking and reading about their work and you're like, well, tell me more about this, or like, why are you into this, or that's weird, can you explain that? Feel free to pipe up. So, without further ado, I'd like each of you to talk about how you see Greensboro's art scene or art culture or art community, and do you fit into that or do you not fit into it? And I know with most of you I've had conversations, good and bad, about this place, so feel free to critique,
About CBA or Greensboro?
Oh,
The Greensboro.
This place?
Okay, Greensboro.
Sorry, the town.
Well, us
Yeah.
too, I mean, like, if you...
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
you just
yeah.
hate just
Yeah.
flame on.
This is a safe space, so, I mean, I think it's a safe
We're
space.
doing our best.
Yeah, so
Doors
feel
not
free to, say exactly what you feel, good and bad.
Okay.
And does that question make sense?
Yeah.
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 All right.
Let me jump right in. When I first came here, there wasn't much going on downtown. I came here in 2000. There wasn't much going on downtown. The Art and Culture Center was here. There were a couple of shops down, and there was nothing worth going to, and I was told not to go over the tracks on Elm Street. And then in 2002, was it 2002? I don't quite remember. But some young people acquired his grandmother's shop, and elsewhere opened and changed. It might not have been the changing force, but I think it was, to the activities that go on and that have gone on the other side. Okay. And one of the things also when I was here in 2002, Richard Florida, if anyone is familiar with Richard Florida at all, he is a urban developer, not a developer.
Designer?
Yes, an urban designer from Columbia University who came up with the idea, and I knew I would remember it, so I wrote it down, of the rise of the creative class. where what he was saying was that the creative people in an area would soon be the major people in those areas, artistic-wise, monetarily wise, social wise. And that's what I have seen occur here in Greensboro. I don't know if any of you agree or disagree with that, but definitely in the last 15 years, there has been a resurgence of activity, creative activity. I mean, even here, even with this environment, in this building right here, many things have changed. So Greensboro is amenable to the change. They're actually part of the change. Different factions. The library, the central library, does a lot to bring about creative activity to the community, as does the Art and Culture Center. So I will stop at that point, but that's what I see, a positive aspect happening in Greensboro from this.
All right. You don't have to go in order.
I've talked about this a few times, and I'm sure you guys can relate, but I noticed that it was like as soon as I graduated from school, my community disappeared. And it was harder and harder to find, I don't want to say like minds, but at least seeing obvious production of art the way that I was in school, which that says a lot, and that's a whole other conversation because it doesn't have to be school that makes you creative or makes you feel comfortable creatively. That said, I think momentum fuels momentum, and when I was finding myself to be more and more productive, I was attracting productive people. And when I was allowing myself to be creative and really putting myself out there, I was attracting the same kinds of people. So it's definitely an effort in Greensboro, but that said, I've been here on and off since '93, and it was a ghost town downtown. I mean, there was nothing going on, and the same kind of reaction where people were trying to stir you away from going downtown for whatever reason, fear. Kind of same thing that happened to Durham. But, I think I'm really excited to see what's happening in Greensboro and how people are really grounding themselves here and trying to make a positive change and making it so that there are things to look forward to and they can enjoy and be entertained by their town. Which, we can't leave for that reason, We have to stay here, and no judgment if you do. I might at some point, but, if you can make the best of your situation, then that's what you have to do. And I think it's really great what CBA is doing, because I think it's inviting people in that have skills, that don't necessarily have a voice, are not necessarily represented. It's a cost-efficient way to do so. Jerry, to add with what you were saying, I think, the more things we have that are free for people, at least to get their foot in the door, is great, because they will at least have some sort of accountability and feel like that they can keep producing. I don't even know if that was the answer to the question at all.
And I'm coming from, because you're saying your circle kind of disappeared, so I'm coming in from being in Greensboro, but not for a particularly long time. I think I've been here since 2014. I graduated towards the end of 2016, or 2017, and my circle didn't dissipate immediately, or maybe it's just too soon, maybe it was good. But even though I do have some friends who move maybe to Durham or somewhere else, they'll come back for shows or events. It's not once you leave Greensboro, it's it's still part of the network. And there's still plenty of people here who I still see, run into, to go to shows, or they'll tell me about events.
That's nice.
And I feel I was telling people about one of the reasons I stay in Greensboro is it feels like there's always something on the weekends to do that has some sort of artistic merit to it. I can pick.
That's good.
That's great. I actually wouldn't have thought about that, but I'm spoiled. I think you're right. That wasn't me starting, sorry.
That was him starting.
How are you spoiled? What do you mean you're spoiled? Like, why wouldn't have you have thought that? Because we often, me and
Oh.
Derek complain that,
Yeah.
about the arts in Greensboro and
Yeah,
that there's
so,
nothing ever happening.
so in lieu to me complaining, I like to think that I can, is disseminate the right word? I can pick how I want to feel about something both objectively and subjectively. I can both support something but have an opinion that's contrary to the fact
Yeah.
that, because I mean, you can ask me about murals and I'm going to have a pretty ridiculous conversation about it, but not right now.
Now I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, and actually, I didn't want to cut you short with that
Oh, I didn't know.
humorous interlude because I actually am more intrigued about sitting back and just listening to everybody else's story, which is not the point of being on the panel. I realize. My background, fairly passive in the beginning, from not birth because that's ridiculous, but like from say 5 years old up until probably college, obviously, when, you know, because high school I'm drawing comic book heroes, and then college someone teaches me how to draw without my face, without my nose pointed to the paper, and it's like mind-blowing, and then all of a sudden I'm an art critic. But Greensboro to me, my mother getting a job with the city after managing her brother's restaurant for a long time, me kind of riding, I remember numerous times coming downtown with my grandmother to pick my mother up from work at the Melvin building. I remember when my mom first started in that building is one of my most treasured spaces in all of Greensboro. And I know that like right now, brutalism is having a revival of appreciation as far as a form of architecture. But
What's the
Yeah.
Melvin building?
the Melvin, it's where the Millennium Gate is. There's the new courthouse, old courthouse, and then the Melvin Greensboro
Oh,
Municipal
yes,
Building.
Federalist
It's
style,
multi-tiered, yeah,
right?
yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that building.
But
That's really
and it, you know, you can, yeah, it sucks that there's only like 2 entrances, even though it was built with like 30, and there's a courtyard garden inside. But yeah, I remember being 5 years old, being on the 3rd story looking down, and not necessarily like exposing all the secrets of social and community and civic duty and stuff, because I don't know any of that shit, but especially at 5. But that was probably one of the first things where I'm like, this isn't just a regular space. This is a space that was considered, and this is in my town. I also briefly, I want to say, so my mother worked with the city. My father was an automotive mechanic, which is just, that's neither here nor there. I thought it was pretty cool. I still think it's pretty cool. But he had the luck of working for a car shop in town that somehow won the bid on operating and maintaining for about 20 years a race car that had been painted by Frank Stella.
Whoa.
So I kind of just got to go and hang out in that thing occasionally. And they recently sold, I want to say 2008. They were being paid yearly by the Guggenheim to keep the thing up. This gorgeous car. That was another, like, it's just like this kind of selfish little gem that helped me become who I am. And but other than that, more recently, in the past 7 years, I've just, a childhood friend of mine's father is a sculptor around town, and I was doing preparatory work at Green Hill, just because in between trying to figure out if I wanted to remain employed in the arts and suffer through it and get whatever job I could that at least had some social clout, because I think they're heavily tied together. He just walked by and was like, what are you doing? I'm like, what does it look like I'm doing? I'm hanging artwork on the wall. And he's like, are you looking for another job? And I was like, well, I've already got 3. Yeah, I'll take another one. And name was Jim DeLucci. I'm sure some of you are familiar. I started working with him. The first day was eye-opening because it was not art in the least for me. I was drilling holes in the top of steel domes for 6 hours. I had to use a bandsaw. I tore the saw off the bandsaw. I was immediately informed as to how much that saw blade cost, and then we put a new one on. A couple of months later, he told me that I was getting paid to make stuff, not to masturbate on it. So that was really funny. But yeah, which all of that comes to mind where it's, and I didn't say that or if you did, at least make it sound as funny as I said it, so he won't. Yeah. But,
Galucci.
Hey there. Didn't see you there. But it, without confronting it, it kind of knocked these educational dialogues that everyone's had throughout school. I don't necessarily want to call them ignorant or naive. There is something to be said about the validity of a single person making versus a group of people making. I myself viewed it from an opposite connotation. So this job validated a lot of what I had previously ignorantly, self-professed ignorantly, kind of looked down on with no reason, because I was older than I should have been, but young enough to not know any better. And it was great. It's, you could say some of those things were very menial activities. Some of them were sweat-inducing. Some of them were like blue-collar to the heaviest degree, working without air conditioning. But at the end of the day, even if I made something, and again, I realize I'm on video, even if I made something that I didn't like, I worked with a crew of people to make a thing that not only took the hours involved with fabrication, but it took, in most cases, it took a city to want a piece of artwork, a bid to go out, city officials to monitor over the bidding process, artists to pull, multiple artists from around the country usually, bringing together bids because they want to get this work, because A, their work is out, B, they get paid. And there's a long chain that you do not see because it's quite honestly just not real interesting. I mean, well, actually it is, but it doesn't, it's so, it seems commonplace, but these are the things that come together to build our society, our culture, and as a result, public art is one of the bigger things that you can get into if any of you do anything along the lines of sculpture. I think it's a great idea. But yeah, and that was really insightful. I mean, it was amazing just to see to the degree, and I think I mentioned, I was talking about this with Jerry beforehand, that it's not just public art and sculpture. I mean, Devin has to be here to pull all of this together. Somebody had to have donated the building. I mean, there's so many people, and they all have to come together, and we have to continue to come together, and it has to be both active and passive. It has to be natural, but like just something, not a lot, don't know what word I'm looking for. But I can drone more, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I could talk that much, but there's an answer in there somewhere for all of
that
you.
was awesome.
But yeah, it's kind of cool. So realistically, I mean, and I got to make some of my own stuff occasionally, but for the most part, I was the tick on the ass of something that was making work. But I took pride in it. I was working in the arts. I don't necessarily work in the arts anymore, but as a result, I will not let myself not be involved in it. It's just too much part of me, even if I'm not making it, if I can in some way help others to show who maybe aren't aware or don't have the time to contribute. I'm not saying I'm going out there and throwing millions of dollars so people can show work, but if I can grease one of the small wheels, I'm cool with that. And now I do home inspection.
And on that note,
Yeah, sorry.
You should pass around those cards tonight.
Yeah.
Eric?
Home inspection.
Oh, no, it's
No.
cool. You'll find me.
Okay, D-Money.
Cool. So I moved to Greensboro in 2009 for school at UNCG, and I got into the arts in 2010 around here, and I started becoming aware of everything that was going on around here. And I would say that I have a very love and hate relationship with Greensboro, and I've talked to you about this, and some friends in the back of as well. I see the potential here, and from traveling, like, there's a lot more cities that's doing it better. You know, I was just in Asheville the other day. Their whole community is supportive of art.
Yeah.
You know, I wish I saw more banks who let artists hang their arts on their walls, and I wish I saw more breweries that let, you know, local artists put stuff in, you know, in the place. And some do, you know, and some coffee shops do too, like Take Street, shout out to them. A lot, they support a lot of local art and all that stuff. But like, it just could be better, you know. And I've been doing photography for, I guess, 10 or so years, seriously. So I've gotten a lot of opportunities here in Greensboro, and you know, it's sustained me pretty well, but I just wish that the city was a little bit better with it. You know, there's things like this, but I feel like people don't come. You know, people say they care, but they don't come. So I think that's what discourages a lot of artists from staying here. But shout out to you guys. CBA is great. Like Weatherspoon's awesome, and you know, all the studios are open up 205, and the other one 305. Was it 305?
503.
503.
205.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. I think that's just, it's kind of getting there, you know, with the emergence of those things. But, you know, I see the potential, and I wish it was a little bit better. So.
I think just to add to that really quick before we change subject, I also cook, and it's the same thing with the food scene in Greensboro. There's something about, and I semi-joke about this, but it's almost like some people, like some very conservative folk either we just need to let them expire in their own time, naturally, of course. But there is this box that they've put us in that, you know, it seems to be so easy other places that really aren't that far away.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the fear is here. It's just a little too avant-garde, or it's a little too, avant-garde is the right word. I cannot wait for that to shift, and for people to just let people be expressive, whatever way it is. I do think that there is a bit of a monopoly in terms of what artists and creatives, whether it be food, whatever, can afford here. I mean, the cost of living is quite cheap, but rent downtown is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And maybe those people need to be a little bit more considerate of what we need. I think that's a huge piece, right?
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
And particularly downtown, they keep raising the rents.
Yeah, and
The
people-
gallery that I was a member of finally had to collapse because they kept raising our rent.
Right.
We could no longer afford it.
Right. And I know a lot of those people, and they're wonderful. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's because it's an old money thing and they have to have their reputation, or what it is. But we are the people that make this city beautiful, you know. And it's been proven cross-culturally. It's everywhere. It's like a country is worth more for visitors, for the inhabitants of that country, of that space, if it is allowing artists to make it great. And I don't understand why they don't look to us as an investment. I don't get that.
Yeah.
But I think that's an epidemic in the United States in general. Sorry.
Well, Jasmine, if I could highlight you for a second. I know you least best. Havana.
Sorry.
That was me. Sorry about that. I was just going to tell you this thing that I remember.
So I know you least best. We just met, and I'm learning about you, and I've been like social media stalking, and you kind of, in my eyes, seem like a success story. You know, like you graduated, you had this paid internship with BF, a creative job, you get paid, you got to buy a house that had a studio for you, and you're like getting shows
Yes.
pretty regularly.
Awesome.
which means you're like producing regularly. You're about to have a solo at CAM, correct?
All
Oh,
really
yeah.
bad. Sounds
Oh,
like
yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's
You
just
can
dope.
Yeah, we can dance it like that.
Really
It's like,
awesome
ooh,
job.
I like that.
Is she?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Jasmine,
Come on.
Yeah, and you're,
I know. We'll talk about that after this.
I'm just wondering, you know, like how do you seem positive, but also, I don't know, like,
What's
This-
negative?
Um,
I like how laid back you are.
Yeah,
or like how
humble.
does it, how do these
Yeah.
spaces like feel to you? Like, are you seeing like an outpouring of people at these shows? Like, are you getting good responses and are you received well? Or are you?
Shows in Greensboro?
I've
She doesn't
shown
like to
I've shown in
travel.
Greensboro. Yeah, I
She
don't
not
like to
really,
travel.
I did.
I didn't,
Oh,
like
there's a
shipping
brochure.
but I didn't read the
So
thing
I've
about it.
mainly shown North Carolina because I really don't like. I don't like to drive and I don't like to ship work as of yet. Maybe
Now we're
it's a more
talking.
secure thing.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be the negative. I will travel to maybe like South Carolina or Virginia. I've got like a radius that I
Mhm.
will expand upon. But yeah, I have shown in Greensboro. I would say I haven't been as active in the art scene until recently. Again, I moved here in like 2014. When I came out of school, I did start working, but I don't think I originally jumped into the art scene immediately coming out of school. So I'd say I've mainly just been really active like the last like 2 years tops.
Damn, and you did all that.
Gosh, crazy.
That's a lot.
That's awesome.
So it was more of like school, like yeah, you're kind of active in that, and there was like a pause, and then it was just like, okay, I'm going to like make sure I have time to make and start putting, because I was making in that space, but I wasn't putting anything out there.
Huh.
And so then I started like, I was like, oh, I'll start with small things, and then that kind of escalated to like bigger shows, and then people started being like, oh, well, why don't you come to this space, or are you interested in doing the show? Like that's how the camp show came up. I was like in like an open entry thing, and I had people asking me to go like, oh, would you be interested in the space? And I got an email, and they were like, oh, well, let's have a meeting at camp. And I was like, okay. And they were like, we want to do a show with you. And I was like, oh, that's what this meeting's about. I didn't know what was coming.
Yeah, waste
Well,
my
I'm
time.
here.
But
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there are negatives too. Like, I feel like the main thing that I think I worried about coming out of school was balancing like my day job and my art career. I feel like for me, that's the biggest issue. I feel like most artists
It's so
really
hard.
worry about
Yeah, absolutely.
is like that time and energy, and like, it took me a while to kind of get in that groove. And of course, having my own like home studio helped that, because if I have to drive to like a studio, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna be like, it's far away.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
gas in
real.
the car.
Yeah.
But if it's like in my basement, then I just walk down there and it's all set up. I have no reason to not work.
Yeah. And that's hard too, to try and juggle. Like I personally can't work from home, even though I should, because it's cheaper and I have the space. I get so distracted by all the dust bunnies and the laundry and everything else.
Living.
I admire a lot of people that can do that.
I'm gonna ask a question. Can you guys tell us like what, how your time breaks down, how you spend time at the studio, and if you have a studio versus not having a studio or working at home, just so I like,
That's good.
you know,
That's a
work
really good question.
versus personal time versus studio time versus if you even have studio. Bianca.
Oh, thank you, Janie. Yeah, I worked from home, and there have been some, I shouldn't have said that, because there have been some semi-successful years working from home. But I finally found that if I could rent a space, it was just one more reason, you know, to work. And I definitely have learned that I have to have a deadline. I will not get anything done. I am a serious procrastinator, and I have found that that is just okay for me. That is what fuels me, and I don't do anything, and I feel guilty about it, and then all of a sudden, I have 2 weeks, and I'll make a shit ton of work.
And it
I
gets
don't
done.
know what it is. I don't sleep. It's really
I did the
unhealthy.
same thing, except for I
Yeah.
get to I finished it.
Yeah, yeah. And Daniel and I have talked about this. I have a theory about that. I really think that for some people, you lose sight of your ego in that sense. Like you don't have time to overthink anything because you literally don't have time. And so you just have to go based on instinct, and you're oftentimes, at least I've been prouder of the stuff that I've created out of instinct. I have a hard time doing commissions for that reason, because I'm never impressed with what I make. And so anyways, I work in photo styling and set design. That's sort of where I make my money, and I also cook. And so for me, I kind of have a perfect schedule. It's a little bit financially insecure at times, and I'm trying to fit. That's my next step this year, is trying to figure out something that is conducive to creating work, but also makes me feel a little bit more financially stable. But
Have an outside studio?
I'm in the same building as Devon. It's the Presbyterian Church of the Covenant on Mendenhall, and it's like $100 a month.
I was gonna say, to be really forward, like, if you could also say how
Of
much
course,
it
it's
costs
$100
for
a month.
space.
There are some spaces that are like 75. 75 to 200
That's a
seems to be
church?
the range. Yes.
And
There's
how
a
much
building.
time do you get to spend there a week?
Again, it's like I can't even, would have to be an average, because I won't use it. I actually didn't go in for like 2 months, and then all of a sudden I have a deadline, and I'll be in there every day, all day, you know, so. But I'm just kind of a weird breed that way. Yeah.
How many artists are in there? And that-
1, 2.
Right now?
There's probably 10.
There's at least like 5 where I'm at.
Yeah, it's a really cool space, and they're just extremely nice people.
Can you bring,
It's the Presbyterian Church of the Covenant. It's on Mendenhall. You can see College Hill if you walk out the front.
Walker
too.
and Mendenhall.
can you drink there?
You can drink there.
You have all access, like they.
I have a little mini fridge. Whomever wants to bring their snacks can put them in my fridge.
Do you have windows?
Perfect.
I have windows. That's a big important thing for me, is windows.
And there's like a new side and an old side, so her side is newer and it's like cinder block walls.
Yeah,
And my side is old, so it's like wood floor.
yeah. It's
Old
definitely
doors.
haunted,
Oh, well.
but the best kind. They're
The Holy
spirits.
Spirit.
Yeah. It's a great, I really like it over there.
I didn't know about that. That's great.
And it's quiet. I mean, everybody seems to have a different schedule, so I don't,
Well, I think it's a good example of a communal space, or like a kind of how Daniel was talking about a city that's thinking about supporting artists because it's a church, but they've started renting out spaces for artists, and they've been doing it for like a decade.
yeah.
And they have like meditation Tuesdays. Anyone and everyone is like
Yes.
welcome to come and join. They let people sleep in the sanctuary if they need shelter for the evening. We're allowed to use their large kitchen, which has like tons of cool equipment in there. I never do, but we can. So it's just like the openness, I think, is a great example of what things should be.
There's a library also, and I was impressed to see that there's a variety of literature. It wasn't just Christian literature, you know, it was meditation and sort of, it's a very cool place.
Okay, Daniel.
So repeat your question one more time.
Do you have studio space? How much time do you allot to your work that provides income for your day-to-day versus your time spent? And for you, probably like time spent in the field and time editing.
Yeah, so I'm procrastinator like you. I'm very lazy.
Yeah, but you're a busy guy.
yeah,
You are a floating
I have my foot
fairy.
in a lot of things, but time management is hard, and I tell every artist or every person who's getting into the arts, you gotta somehow conquer that, because if not, your dreams will just die. So I have a planner, believe it or not, and every Sunday I just kind of map my week out because my day job, I operate Scarlet Car Maintenance. My schedule's all over the place. I work 7 days a week. Well, no, I work 5 days a week, but it can be any of the 7 days. There's no set times. I'm 10 to 7 one day, 12 to 9 one day, or 8 to 5 one day, So it's a lot of early mornings sometimes, a lot of late nights, but, I just got to make the time to do it. But, I mean, it's just hard.
Give
But
us a number.
a number
How
of
many hours do you
hours
spend on creative work a week?
wow.
during the week.
What?
Yeah, I grab time because I get jobs so randomly throughout the week.
You should
I
talk
would
about
say,
your podcast too.
I'll talk about it in a little bit.
Okay.
Well, I guess that's involved.
Because that's part of it,
Yeah, cool. So I have a podcast called Free Pizza, by the way. That's nothing to do with free pizza. It's about creatives, and I talk to creatives about their lives and stuff. But I would say easily over probably 30 to 40.
And how many hours do you work at CarMax?
40.
You work 40
Jesus.
hours a month.
Yeah.
And you don't, I know that you don't have a studio space.
No, I don't really need one. I use one if I need to, for like, if I'm doing stuff for brands or someone like that, but I don't really use a studio. So,
Can I add something onto the end of these conversations, like these answers, if you don't mind? I don't care about anything with that.
Anything?
Can you tell me either, like, for some reason it popped into my head, I want to know, like, what kind of support do you have from the people around you? Like, where are you drawing your replenishment from?
Wow.
Dang.
oh, man.
What kind of support? You mean
Yeah,
like
what do we-
creative
Like,
support,
in your
emotional?
day-to-day life, with all of these different things going on, where are you getting your replenishment from? Where is that support coming from that is keeping that flame burning? And like, where are those
Yeah.
words that are
Yeah.
being spoken over you that are like, hell yes,
Well-
Yeah.
do your thing, you know?
Or
Well-
do you not have that?
Right.
No, I-
Are you the only one doing it
Yeah.
and you're getting it from the
Yeah.
internet or podcasts or reading books or whatever the heck?
Yeah. I'll take it.
You go ahead.
So luckily with the podcast and stuff, I've made a humongous creative network. So I'm constantly talking to my friends all day long, you know, and I share my struggles with them, you know, all the time. I go to Jenny all the time, have a crowd there, and different people, and they're, you know, they always encourage just me, just every single day. Podcast too. My mom drilling in on me every now and then. But I definitely have it. Fortunately enough, you know, it's been very, very great. But you know, that definitely helps.
Yeah. I mean, I think as creative people, I'm sure many of you can relate. If you don't do it, you feel like you're gonna die. Like,
Yeah.
I've noticed that. If I am not I shouldn't even say productive, but if I am not doing something with my hands in some capacity. Well, I've actually learned too that if I personally am not using my hands in a day, my brain won't work. I just can't even, and even in conversation with people, I've had to preface conversations with people. I get so distracted about what's going on with your face. I love your glasses. Let me tell them, oh, that wrinkle is really curious. Like, I like, what's the story behind that scar? All this stuff that I've often been termed like, you're not paying attention to me. You're not listening to me. I was the doodler in school. I used to get in trouble for doodling because I wasn't listening. Well, I found that when I was doodling, I would retain all of the information. When I wasn't, I wouldn't retain any of it. And so I have to, or else I won't be able to function. And I think I've come across a lot of people that are similar, where if they do not take the time, their life is just not as good. And so there's that first and foremost. And then I think personally for me, I was a really lucky kid. I had creative parents, that understood that was just, I was their little creative kid, and they had to just let me do my thing to be happy. But everybody has it different. I know that.
I would inject too that Daniel, as possibly the youngest member of our panel,
Yeah.
is very prolific on social media,
Mm.
and in that too, not just like getting praise or like feedback, but creating like a safe space for other people to reach out to him.
Yeah,
being
that's
Doing
true.
a really
around.
good
That
job.
is true.
Yeah. I mean, I've
using
never,
that. And I've seen a lot of people reach out to Daniel, and he's just straight up like, I'm gonna meet up with this person and talk to them about this. Like, he's very open, very
Mhm.
willing to meet with other creatives. And not that anyone else is it, but I just see that.
Right.
Yeah, and
Well,
also
I agree.
recognizing like talent when maybe that person doesn't even realize that they're talented, and I think that's huge to
Or
have
something
that
just
skill.
like, totally out there, and there's still like validity in it. Like,
Yeah.
I have no idea what this is, but I wanna talk to you about it. I wanna see what this is. So
Yeah.
like curiosity paired with just personal effort.
Yeah.
So it's that whole idea of like, by lighting another's flame, your flame continues to stay lit.
Oh, absolutely.
Whoa.
What you said though, Bianca, is when you're being productive, you attract the other productive people, and that's
Yeah.
totally like a testament to
Yeah.
such a huge,
Yeah, absolutely.
totally.
Awesome.
I'll contribute that you have been one of my, like, not abused, but I have felt better about the things that I've been doing because of what other artists and everybody else around here that are creatives, like in the community, like before you guys, I don't think I would have ever done any. Like I would have felt comfortable
Oh.
to.
It's a vulnerability.
It
It
really is.
definitely draws that out of you, and especially like now, you can't even really be a successful creative without being willing to like share constantly
Mhm.
online.
All the time.
Well, why do you think you wouldn't have felt comfortable? Because you, yeah, why?
I think because like, one of the things that you're talking about, like what makes you, like support wise, like what makes you, like push through and all that. I don't have a family to push through. Like, I mean, I have my son, and my husband and stuff, and like his parents and things, but I mean, like as far as my parents go, I mean, I have parents, but like I don't speak with them, and they don't really know anything about what I do. I have like tiny sisters that are actually coming to stay with me this weekend. I haven't seen in 2 years, so they're gonna come chill with me this weekend and see their nephew.
Weird.
Because they're like 10 and 8.
Whoa.
Anyway, it's because of you guys, like that, and it's not like that you're younger. I mean, just being in Jamie's studio last weekend made me feel very like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Energized.
Energized. And you did too.
And inspired.
Energized.
I was there. She was helping me with my banner for that show this
I saw
Saturday.
that, yeah.
So she did a lot of the brain.
Yeah.
Cool.
But you still.
But it's still going back to being in college and having that social space when you go to the studio and knowing
Yeah.
that you're going to go there to work on something, and everyone else is also working through
Yes.
Yeah.
the same things. I have a single studio space, and it's really difficult for me to go there sometimes. And then if I can get someone to go meet me there, I'm like
Yeah.
10 times more likely to spend more than 45
Oh, that's
minutes.
so true. I mean, even like with the church situation, if I know that other people are in the building, whatever it be, if somebody's making tea for homeless
Yeah,
people,
like
or if it's like,
bathing.
you know, whatever, to dumping the trash, like, if there's somebody there, it motivates me more.
The people around me make me feel better. I mean, just like human contact, like especially being with a child all day long, like when
Yeah.
you're home with your son or daughter or whatever, just being home all day long and then like being able to have like that adult interaction. Not just that, like not just saying like to any other person that doesn't have like a kid, but just to know that someone is there or that supports you. Doesn't matter like if they're your parent or your friend or your dog. I mean,
To share
Oh, my
ideas.
dog is so not supportive.
Someone who wants
Yeah. We talked It was like one of the
hates the
first things he
studio.
said.
I bought an entire love seat, hoping that would entice him. He goes down there and he grumbles at me until I leave the studio.
ditch him.
Yeah.
Just kidding, I love your dog.
So back to go. No.
I was gonna say, it speaks to this idea of like synergy, like whether you're saying like whether it's somebody taking out the trash or it's someone you're connecting with on social media or you're, someone who's connecting with you on social media
Yeah.
or like watching what you're doing, like ultimately these are creating pathways for synergy, which opens up new undiscovered ways for our creativity to move.
Yeah.
And that is what as creatives, that's what we're seeking. We're seeking new undiscovered territory.
Mhm.
And how do we get there? How do we find it? What supports us in that? Whether it's our studio or the job that we have from 9 to 5 or whatever those things are, they all contribute to this like recipe for the larger picture of the contribution of creativity that we're putting out into our life, whether we're at Harmax selling cars or at VF doing, that job or whatever it is, like it all is one big picture. But they all have very specific pieces that are very important. And how do we, I feel like that's what we're talking about right now. What does that sort of dissection look like and what are the pieces? How are they contributing? And how can we better understand how to support them in ourselves and in each other and in our communities so that we can see Greensboro grow in a bigger way because it's just, it wants to.
It wants to.
It wants to. It's so fertile.
It's-
It
yeah.
wants to.
You
It's
can
a little
feel it.
scared. It's a little like,
too, the more specific piece to that is being given permission. And I was given permission. Luckily, I'm very blessed, I know that, from my parents, because they were both the same way, and they were given permission. Actually, only one was given, both were given permission. And, you know, I see a lot of people that have not been granted that, and it breaks my heart, because there's obviously something incredible in them. I have a cousin that's this way, and both of his parents were athletes. My aunt was in the Olympics. Their entire life was around sports. And that's the way they related to each other, you know, just the stats on athletes, and which is great, that's awesome. But they could not relate to their creative kid. And he completely stifled it. And he is a weird kid, and I love him, but I cannot wait for that to just break and this amazing thing to come out, because he's not being true, you know? And so I think, I mean, I don't know if other people can relate to that with their parents, just in the way that they grew up, like just feeling okay in their skin in that way.
Yeah, I had supportive parents. I mean, they don't fully understand everything.
Yeah.
Like, my dad's blind, so like
Wow.
most of my work, they'd be like, "What did you work on?" And I'd be like, "Well, how do I
Wow.
describe this
Wow,
now
that is
to
fascinating.
you?" So,
And he's always been blind?
always been blind, but he loves getting art. He'd be like, "Do you have any pieces for me?" And
That's
so
so
I'll
cool.
so I'll frame them and we'll put them
Does
in
he
his house.
have you describe them to him?
Yes,
Oh,
because he wants to be able
that's
to tell people when they come to the house. So even though he doesn't fully understand everything, they've always been
Yeah.
supportive of me no matter like what the thing was. Same thing with my mom. My mom's a teacher, so she naturally is just like, as long as
Yeah.
you're learning, it's fun. But I've seen like plenty of my friends who didn't have like supportive like parents growing up, and it was just like seeing them struggle. Like it's harder for them, and it shouldn't have to be. And that's like really frustrating. Like I have this one friend, she's always coming to me for advice, and it's like I could see like the stuff that she's having to go through shouldn't be
Shouldn't
there.
be.
Yeah.
Like it would have been so much easier for her if her parents were just like, I don't get what you're doing, but I want you to try it
Yeah.
at least. And I know at least for me, I have cousins who are very creative, and like their parents may not fully get what they're doing, but what they'll do is they'll just be like, you have a question about art, just email your cousin Jasper, text your cousin. So I'm like that cousin who just gets random
The email.
questions in her inbox from my younger cousins, and I'm just like, I guess I'm that cousin now. Like I didn't get the heads up on it, but
Yeah.
one day that just happened.
It's my job.
And now I'm getting tagged by aunties, and I have a lot of aunts, being like, oh, just talk to your cousin Jasmine about this question. Even if it's not an art field I know anything about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, because now you're kind of their rock, you know?
Yeah.
You want their support
Yeah.
system as they grow up, so that's really cool to hear.
I have a question about that. How do you, like, when they message you and they ask you for advice or like ask, like, your take on something, how do you respond? Like,
I try to answer it as best I can. If it's something out of my range of knowledge, I'll try to maybe like reference to someone like else I know, or like link to like websites or videos or something like
what
that.
if they're asking about something that you've made and that they want to, or they ask, how did you get into this? Like, how did you get this, like, creative idea? Like, where did you get it from, or something like that? Like, because I've gotten that from my sisters, and I don't really, I mean, I know they're younger, but I don't know how to, like, explain that.
I can explain it as best I can. I mean, a lot of my work's very like personal. It deals with a lot of family stuff, so it's like an easy way to transition into that. My family take away from that what they will. My little sister just believes all of my pieces are about her. I don't know
Yeah.
how she
That's
got that
awesome.
transition. Catch her at any show, she'll be there like, this is about me. My sister made this. Have you met her? Let me go get her.
Sounds like my sister. Like, my sister calls me every day, like 5 times a day.
Whoa.
And I was in Jane's studio last week, and she called me like 10 times. She's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm here with my friend. She's like, what are you doing there? I was like, we're arting.
Yeah.
She's like, what are you doing there? We're painting things. She said, oh, you're still doing art? And I want to, like,
Is this the 10-year-old?
yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And that's what Janie said, like, and it's cool, but it's also like annoying because
Maybe you should just say, we're just getting naked, and then she'll just get freaked out.
Yeah, at least you would.
We're just getting naked and
I
painting
thought
pictures.
I thought I was talking to her today, but it was actually the 8-year-old.
Uh-oh.
And because I was like, hey, you're coming coming Friday, right? And she's like, yeah, I'll see you then. I was like, okay, see you then. Would you let me know, like, what time? And so she's like, yeah, I'll call you then. I'm like,
That sounds like a
okay.
good
Hey.
My,
So
sis-
wait,
my sister is
you're-
like 18, 19. She still doesn't tell me when she's coming.
Oh.
That may not go away.
And I was like, I know she can't drive, so. But it's things like that that she'll ask me about. She's like, oh, did you get your drawing, or did you get your art stuff from Aunt blah, 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 or whoever, it's our family that knows how to put stickers on windows or something, that, you know,
Decals?
yeah, stuff like that. And that's not what I mean. Like, my grandmother, as far as I can remember, has done odds and ends, like, in her house, and, like, I don't know, she's done artwork or whatever, but I think my sister, she sees that, or that's what she thinks. And I don't know if she thinks that I'm putting things on the floor, but
Well, she's taking something that she knows. and
she's
trying
checking,
to
she knows
Right.
it's something.
And she's filling in the gaps.
Yeah, so, and it's hard that I'm not with her all the time
Yeah.
to tell her, that's not just what things are, that's not how artwork always is, but you can actually do things that have color.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Maybe
it just
you could
helps
make art
just
with them
to,
this weekend.
Like, put it out there
I-
so they
yeah,
have
I
a bigger
can't
scope
wait,
of what
yeah.
art is.
Yeah.
Because I know,
Yeah.
like, when I first was like deciding to be an artist, I originally, even before being an artist, I was actually like going into like engineering.
Mm.
I was like hardcore into engineering.
Mhm.
And then I one day was like, I'm going to leave engineering school, and I left. So when I decided to be an artist, I had a very like small idea of what being an artist was. I had no idea. I was going based off like what I'd researched online. So like I was like, oh, there's concept artists, there's animators, there's illustrators. Like I didn't know what was out there. And like the more you can tell them about art, the more ideas of what an artist can be is out there, because it's so widely ranged. Even just like on this panel, we've got so many different mediums and like just subject matter. So even if it's just something simple, putting it out there, they'll know like, hey, that's something else that's out there than the stickers, you know.
Or just painting.
Yeah.
Just
Bring them
painting.
here.
Yeah.
This is a
Yeah.
quite.
Yeah, bring
I
them
think
here.
I want-
Inspiration.
yeah.
It's home,
It's
baby.
I think I
Yeah.
will. It was a short, like, I didn't know that they were gonna come, but now I do, and
Yeah,
I'm
just
trying to think of
expose them to
things.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanna think of things, because they're also in a very, like, tiny little bubble.
Right.
That, I mean, they don't live near here or anything, but
Yeah.
I want them to know.
Yeah.
So.
Definitely.
And take advantage of their age. I think sometimes instead of giving them
They're
answers.
impressionable, I know.
Yeah, I think questions are sometimes better than answers. I mean, a picture book, when I just look back on that age and things that I reacted to, I know that my mother would sit down and I would color coloring books with them. And yeah, that's corny, but my
It
mom
was
had a
something,
way,
yeah.
my mom had a way of taking and making a bold line around the outline and then shading lightly inside that
Whoa.
space.
Yeah.
And that blew my mind. She also did things where she would take like the spike with the different size colored plastic donuts, and she would spray paint them different colors than what they came. And my dad would doodle, and so I was always it was more about reacting to the image and not worrying about an explanation. And then when explanations came around, I would just figure it out for myself. I mean, they never asked me what I thought about things, but I just think you just throw as much stuff as you can at them, and something's gonna speak to them.
But
And you
also,
don't even know.
another question is, did you all go to school for like some type of art, like some kind of like creative, or did you go to
Yeah.
school at all for it?
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about Jerry. You were a nurse for a while, and
Yeah, I
it
was a
sounds
nurse
like
for 40 years.
you
Yeah.
did.
For a while.
For a little while.
That's the exact number.
So like you kind of didn't enter into art making until later, and or were you always?
No, okay, I never took, well, other than art history courses and that sort of thing, I've never had any, quote, formal artistic training. However, in the early 60s, mid-60s, okay, I learned to be a weaver during that whole arts and crafts renaissance.
Like macrame?
Like-
Oh, no.
Black-
No, I can make you little yards of cloth if you like.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So all that period of time, I still was a weaver and wove. And then when I came here is when I transitioned over into doing felting. I used to belong to weavers guilds all over Now I belong to the Central Carolina Fiber Guild.
Do you think it was like you
I didn't even know
meeting that Gate City, or like that person at that yarn store that kind of ignited?
Oh, that story?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I have always been intrigued by the work of Mark Rothko. Some of you may be very familiar with him. He was an expressionist during my early lifetime. He committed suicide. Well, anyway, that's neither here nor there. But his work where he comes to the edge of color and another color is there, and that happens, that amazing thing that Pollock ran with, but Rothko did it so differently.
Yeah.
Okay? As a weaver, I wanted to bring about that kind of thing in a loom, but you can't, really, unless I unless I painted the warp or what have you, because weaving is linear. It's that, and it's that way. You can do a lot of things
Yeah.
and make it look very different, but you can't change the strict color patterns that occur. Unless you, well, I would consider it cheating, that you paint the warp, which is done, very much so, but I wanted to do it in the weaving process, or in the process of making cloth. And I was here, and I was at Gate City Yarn one day talking to the proprietor about what I was so frustrated doing. And she said, well, maybe there could be, you know, a different way. And we had this discussion. And then this woman walked in. And she was engaged in the conversation. The proprietor brought her into the conversation. And the woman said to me, well, have you tried felt? And I thought, no, it never occurred to me. You know, felt. And she said, well, I have classes here, come, and I will teach you the basics of felting.
Cool.
And that was the first piece I ever did was of raw wool dyed yellow, blue, and red. And I was able to, with these fibers, as I pulled them out and twisted them and blended them to one another, to create that concept in my mind that I so much wanted from, you know, which I had learned or seen in Rothko. So, and I've been felting ever since. I've changed a lot of what I do with felting, but that's how I met this woman, and she just changed my whole attitude toward fiber. I mean, I do have a lot of yarn, and I spin, and I make my own threads and what have you, but with felt, it's just the fiber and how you lay it out and what you do with it, and how it just becomes, you have all this loose stuff and suddenly you have a piece of fabric. It's an amazing, and it's fast. You can take, you know, weeks and months or hours in planning it, but once you begin the process of changing it from fiber to fabric, it happens. And it's kind of both intriguing and yet very rapidly gratifying.
If it was with yarn, would it be so technical? Would it be like you have to time it right whenever you're doing it to get it to go in a certain color, or?
I don't understand what you mean.
I'm sorry, whenever you were talking about how like you were trying to get the colors to go, like.
Oh, in weaving?
Yeah,
Yeah. No, that's,
it can't.
no, actually. Weaving is a process of one stable group of threads crossing a moving group of threads. So to have, if you had blue thread and, let's say green, no,
You're talking about complement?
blue and,
You had to make purple. What are you trying to make? White?
Blue and
Green.
yellow and green.
Blue and
Green,
Yellow,
yellow,
okay.
blue.
Yellow,
Right,
yellow,
okay.
they make blue.
if you had blue thread and yellow thread,
Yeah.
and they cross each other.
They're not gonna.
When you look at it directly,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you will see green.
Mm-hmm.
But you cannot have it be that there's so much, you can see all the blue, and then you can see
Yeah.
all the yellow, and then somewhere along the way you see green. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, okay.
And we,
And he's got a
where
piece
it
back
happens,
there where you
Oh,
can
I
kind
just
of
see it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it happens in felt because you control the fiber. It isn't thread anymore. It's just, when I talk about fiber, it's like sheep's wool or silk fiber. Yeah. Or even human hair or dog hair, if you want.
Well, jumping off
Yeah.
of like that story
Yeah.
and how that woman changed your life, basically, as we often change lives. I think it highlights
Yeah.
the importance of community and accessibility.
Yes.
So back to like what Daniel is saying, you know, he's seeing these other cities where shit is happening. Things are popping off creatively, which thus gives to the rest of the community because everybody likes what we do as creatives. We like make a place feel alive in all forms, whether you're in marketing or you're at CarMax or you're building sculptures, fabricating things, or cooking suppers, or doing photo shoots. So I would like to highlight how each of you contributes to building our culture and community, which I didn't realize until I started really thinking about who you are and what you do, that maybe like I intuitively like was drawn to you or asked you to be on here because you do these things, or also like I think just artists do that in general maybe. But so like Bianca, she works with Next Supper and Goat Lady Dairy, which are these kind of underground dinner things, which is another creative community bringing together community things. You're paid, but you also love it. You know, like the way you're working and talking about food and wine and things like that. And also you show all over Greensboro and connect people. Audrey, who works at the Green Bean and curates that space, offered Bianca a show, and Bianca was like, Devin, be in this show with me, let's do it together. And that's just one example of like tons that she does all the time. Daniel, podcasts. You interview all the creatives in
who does
Greensboro.
that?
Sydney left, but she was.
Yeah,
one
Sydney's
of them.
right there.
Oh, she was on there.
Sydney,
Ivana was on there.
Ivana.
Janie, Bianca.
Yeah.
You know, and like it's like that's for free. It's your free time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
free
it's free pizza.
Yeah. And then also like with your photo series, where you're taking pictures or photographs of your friends, people you encounter. You're putting them in these vulnerable spaces and like challenging that idea. Maybe you don't really know what that means yet, but you're learning it with them, creating community, like safe spaces we're talking about. That's beautiful. Derek, how you're talking about working with Jim. Like, yeah, it sucked a lot, but you were like, you found community there.
Yeah.
And through your critique,
Right.
I think, like, for me, you are a critiquer, and that's why I love discussing things with you, because you're challenging, and you're always wanting more from our
Yeah.
creative communities, and you see, you know, the path forward, and you feel like desperate for it, and so thus you like support others in their endeavors to make those things happen. Like he's donated his time to help install shows here and do lighting after working like all day. He worked all day doing home inspections and then came here for this panel. He's sleepy. And a lot of us did. Jesse was at Michael's all night and now he's here. Jasmine, again, I just met you, but thinking about your work, you said that you create dialogues with your work. So I think that's a perfect example of an artist that is not just like, yeah, you're making work about your life, but you're seeking to create a space for us to learn from each other and learn from our conversations and better know how to like come together, wouldn't you say? Through that dialogue. Derek says your piece is his favorite in the show.
Yeah, I didn't even listen to it. I was just watching a gentleman take it in and just sitting back, and I was observing like the editing and like the masking of the screen, like the video behind the initial layer. It's like, this is something.
Yeah.
I mean, just from
terribly sick nose doing that.
but just from the content alone, I was like, wow. I mean, I didn't even want to talk about, like, because I'd have to listen to it, obviously. But yeah. not to say that it's good or bad. I'm gonna shut up.
Okay.
Jerry.
All right, Jerry.
Jerry, so kind of what you were just saying about your story of meeting that woman, but you're also involved in the Creative Aging Network. And so you seem, now that you're retired and you have like free time, you seem to always be pushing for your community of peers who is often probably neglected because America forgets about the aged. You're trying to bring that life back into, the rest of our lives, if that makes sense.
Right.
Also, so I just moved back to Greensboro after being away for 7 years, and I met Jerry here at a show, and he immediately just started showing me who the art people were, because I didn't know, I like had lost all my connections, and I didn't know like who was showing and who was making work. He knew that I needed to know that as like a person working here, and he just started pointing out. Again, I mean, that's just like beautiful friendliness. And I think that leads to you all who like came out in the rain because you love Daniel White or Bianca or somebody, and you wanted to support them.
Or not. And people came out.
Yeah, these ladies dropped by today.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But I think
Thank all you guys.
But during the show too, it was a rainy day during the show, and
Yeah.
we had what 200 plus
Yeah, that was
people?
awesome.
Must have been more.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But I think that shows that you guys want more out of a city and a town and a community, and you're doing your part. So I would say keep doing that. Tell your friends. CVA wants to become a place that can house things like this more often and be the parent for that artist that doesn't have that support system. So I wanted this to be like, drink what you want, sit where you want, say what you want kind of feeling. And we have more every Wednesday this month that we hope are like, better attended, but where you're still bringing your ideas and the conversation to happen back and forth. That's amazing. So do you guys have any more questions, comments, things you would like love, tokens, or critiques? Are you like, this was boring, I wanted to hear about like their artwork? Yeah, thanks for coming. Any last things from you guys? I feel like you were all nervous and like hesitant.
Super nervous.
Except for Jasmine, she was like, yeah, I'll be there. And I asked her like 2 days ago. Because she's just a success story.
I feel like when you put it all down like that, it looks like that. But there's not enough space in between.
There's not though. It's like 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah, that's not a whole lot of time. You did a lot of work in 2 years. That's good. And I'm still getting school.
I guess I would say we're a few of the many creatives in Greensboro, so just definitely
Yes.
keep encouraging people.
It's very
You know,
true.
it means a lot for y'all to come to art shows or come out to things like this. It really makes us very happy to see you guys here. It means you care. You caring helps us care.
Yeah.
So yeah, just keep pushing your friends and loved ones and peers in the art world because it means a lot.
Little kids.
Yeah, definitely little kids.
Yeah. We've got kid art in here.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's the
Oh
same
my
as
gosh.
adult
Yeah.
art.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Which Mila, I got a little side story from Mila, who made this awesome pirate ship, but apparently it's not a pirate ship.
It's a
We
love.
got it wrong.
I think it's a love ship. There's
It's
people
like
making out.
it's a trade ship, I think.
The spices. There's spices
Yeah, but
in
you guys
there.
need to check out this pirate ship, trade ship in the back.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and she's what, 8 or 9
Yeah.
years old. Yeah, it's got like all these like incense and like bags of spices and things in the back. So,
And our next panel is going to be local art supporting organizations. So if you have qualms, you can like stick it to the man. Green Hill's gonna be a part of it. If you're like, why won't you let us in your shows? You can say those things. Or like, thank you for having like really, I don't think they exist anymore.
I don't even know who that.
They
yeah.
do.
Nah, they don't. Do they?
Yeah.
I was just in there
Whoops.
like 3 weeks ago.
Well,
I haven't been
there's a
there in, like,
con.
12
We didn't know
years.
it was still.
That
around.
horse has still been in there since like 7 years ago.
Got license
Oh,
plate
man.
fish.
Yeah. But so we can carry these ideas over to next Wednesday, and then after that, it's multiculturalism in art. So how do we stay diverse and make sure that we're not so segmented in our different communities? And I think they all can kind of like roll over to each other. So if you want to come back and keep drinking, or be sipping water.
Yeah.
Okay, well, feel
I have a
free.
question.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have a question just for my own knowledge and for maybe like future ones. These show of hands, who knows what all 5 of these artists' work looks like? What about 4
Harsh.
of them?
Harsh.
I put their Instagrams and
Oh,
websites on
and
the
then us
brochure.
3. Okay, what about 3 of them? Anyone know what 3 people's work?
Wait, should we be also raising our hands too?
Oh, sure. Yeah,
I just
Yeah,
feel
I do
like,
now, yeah.
these
Sorry, I
are
thought
very
we were-
different artists,
my
and
bad.
there's nothing that's blatantly telling us what their work looks like, so unless you do
Oh,
like
yeah, that's
previous
a good
research,
point.
Yeah, I've
it's kind
previously
of
researched myself.
cool to have you guys all talking, and then it's like, who knows what you do?
Okay,
Right.
that's a good thing.
You just kind of have to take our word for
I
it.
don't know,
Yeah.
I kind of like it, I
Okay.
kind of like that,
It's a
I mean,
mystery.
I know what
Ambiguity.
all 5 of your work looks
Yeah.
Well,
like.
also that brochure that Ivana and I worked hard on says
that one that says things that
what each of them are interested in and what they do. There's no
Right.
pictures.
Well, it is really nice though.
Yeah.
We don't have anything to do
I didn't plan it.
Yeah.
So that's really cool.
I mean, I would have thrown my resume if I knew it.
Yeah. I didn't want to like specifically like focus on their work, but I felt like they would bring their diverse ideas because of who they
I
are.
do
I felt like this was
People.
more about our experience as artists here than
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
our work.
Yeah.
I do a
At least that's
painting.
why I bought you from like the emails.
Yeah.
It's like-
But I made sure to put your info so people could connect.
Thanks,
So you
Doug.
guys can like
Yeah.
Facebook chat.
Questions? Any
But
questions?
homework, I think
Facebook.
it would be very interesting for everyone to see how diverse all of their work is.
Yeah, really,
It's
though.
Like, this is a very different.
Very different group.
Yeah,
She's good at that.
a nice setup.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, feel free to have a beer with us and talk about our feelings, or you can leave.
Thank you guys.